Hello, very good morning to you. Welcome along to Wednesday mornings Off the Ball AM. As ever, if you want to get involved in the conversation today, you're more than welcome to drop us a comment either on Facebook, on YouTube, pardon me, or on Twitter at Off the Ball AM. We've got a very serious boxing special for you today. Andy Lee is with us in the studio. How you doing? Going to look back on the start of the high performance unit and that kind of period of history in Irish boxing, and then we'll fast forward a little bit to what the hell happened in Rio and the aftermath of that too. Eric Donovan's going to join us as well. When you look back on that time, is it like the happiest time of your life as a carefree, or is actually, you know, winning a world title, you actually get to enjoy that a bit more? It's the journey, this part of the journey.
At that time it was a very serious time, you know. For me, it was a transition, and it was a great time. It was a lot of good fun times. Like, we had a lot of good times traveling and boxing and winning as a team. Yeah. But it was a very serious time. A lot of hard work. And
did you enjoy the hard work? Like, do you know what I mean? There is that period of your life where you don't realise that you don't have responsibilities. It's only when you get responsibilities later on you go, oh, balls.
I know.
I wasted that.
I know. Yeah. I don't know. I think I knew what I wanted to do. I was only thinking the other day, like, all that I achieved at such a young age, you know, that I was a very focused young man, you know, to be that young and to have
like, where did it all go?
Yeah, I know. I'm sitting on the couch eating a chocolate cake thinking, well, how did I ever achieve all that stuff? But, yeah, no, I was very focused as a young man, and I knew, like, I had a clear vision of what I wanted to do, and the Olympics was my goal, and everything I did, every decision I made was leading to that, you know, so... It was an enjoyable time, but it was also a time of wanting to win and always chasing the next goal.
That singularity of purpose, when did you get that and how did you get it?
I think I got it when I was around 15 or 16, to be like, and that's I can almost remember the day even. I was working. We left London. We moved to Limerick. My mother's from Limerick, and we'd always planned to move back to Ireland until summers was spent in Ireland. And when we left London, I didn't go to school, and I was working with my dad, and we were doing landscape gardening and tree surgery. And as you can imagine, it's very physical, hard labour. And it was either a lifetime of doing that for the rest of my life, or the only other thing I had going was boxing. And I remember I used to live on a road called the Bog Road, off the Dublin Road in Castleconnell, and I was jogging down there one day with my headphones on and, you know, just tossing it all up, and I said, I'm going to give this a go, you know, I'm going to dedicate myself and try and make it, because it was, you know, it was a hard work doing all that stuff. Yeah. The trees, so up the trees, and I continued doing that, but also focused on my boxing, you know, and yeah.
Yeah, so you were, I didn't know that, effectively like full-time boxing while also working.
Yeah, I would prioritise my boxing, and my dad would always give me the space to do what I needed to do. If I needed a day off to go to Dublin to train or things like that, it was given, you know. So. And
I'd say they were probably pretty happy to see you kind of decide that that's what you wanted to do at that point.
Yeah, I don't think I ever mentioned it to them.
Right,
okay. Boxing, like, was just something we always did. My older brothers both boxed, and they were just, you know, when they were boxed, they were international boxers, but then they just, you know, they got married and just moved away from it later on, and as late teenagers, so they just moved away from it, you know. So I guess it was just a given that I was going to box and then see how far I wanted to go with myself, you know.
Because we were just chatting off air, and I was asking you, like, you know, was the quality of coaching great when you were a kid, but actually... So you were good enough in London when you came to Ireland, to make it out of the local system?
Yeah, I came, like, obviously wasn't a finished product or anything like that, but I had enough about me to go through the Limerick Championships, the Munster Championships, and even the All Irelands, really, and get to the national team without really being tested. And to be honest with you, I came into the Irish boxing. In the Limerick's I beat an Irish champion, in the Munsters I beat an Irish champion, and then I won 3 fights in the National Stadium and only conceded 1 point, and I was thinking, like, this is I better clean up here, you know. And, but then when I got to the national teams, I saw boxers like Roy Sheehan, Dermot Barrett, and other guys, and I was thinking, like, oh, these guys can fight, you know. Yeah. And I knew then I was at my level with those guys.
The point was really that, like, the system wasn't always set up to allow talented boxers through at that point. Like I hope a good bit further down the road now, because there was a top of the tree with an Ireland team, but it wasn't organised, and that's kind of the whole point of the conversation we're going to have a little bit later on.
Yeah, the fact that to develop the boxers from a young age, but also develop the coaching. I know there's seminars now around the country, and the high performance coaches, they go around and they give like master classes, and it's important that while we have Zoe here for these number of years, that we get the most out of him, that we can educate the coaches as well.
Yeah.
And to learn his technique and get some of those pearls of wisdom that can develop fighters from a young age, so that they're not learning it when they're 23 and 22, when they reach the national team, as seniors. That
when it's too late.
When they can learn it as 8-year-olds and 10-year-olds.
Yeah, all right. Let's tell you what is coming up on the show today. We're going to speak with Daniel Harris a little bit later on. We were talking a little bit about Alex Ferguson yesterday and how rose-tinted glasses have definitely been part of the legacy of Ferguson, but he gets the benefit of the doubt because of the massive amounts of Premier Leagues and the 2 European Cups that he won. So we'll talk with Daniel Harris about that around about 9 o'clock. Going to talk boxing, as I said. Eric Donovan's going to join us on Skype, and he's obviously with us in studio. This is on the back of the Broken Rings documentary. We'll play a couple of clips from that as well. We were down at the Munster Press Day yesterday. Andrew Conway's been talking with Oisín. Johann Van Graan has been talking with Oisín. We'll get the lads' thoughts on that, and we'll also bring you Brian O'Driscoll's prediction for that game a little bit later on as well. But first, we're going to start with the newspapers.
OTB AM. In association with Air. Get Air Sport free with Air Broadband.
So, starting this morning with the Irish Independent, not everything is for sale is the lead story on the back of this. New Director General Ryan keen to seek natural balance, but warns GAA can't thrive without reasonable income. So, yesterday, Tom Ryan, the new GAA Director General, sat down in front of the assembled media for about half an hour and outlined that basically he feels like the association's structures are fit for purpose. The deals that they've done are going to stand. There won't be more extra games on television, although it did strike me that the GAA have their own platforms at the moment, so that definitely leaves room for GAA now to broadcast those extra games digitally, and I think that I wouldn't be terribly surprised to see if some of those games do end up there. But he basically said the organisation is quite conservative, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, and so he gave the impression that he's going to be a steady hand on the tiller. The other one is about Mourinho, that he's been backed by the board to overhaul the squad at Old Trafford, so we'll see exactly what happens there. I'll bring you this in the order that I'm supposed to do it. The Times Ireland edition: Ulster fans may boycott next match. Now, if the Ulster fans boycott if some Ulster fans boycott the next match, then, well, I don't know, those Ulster fans, so there's something rotten in the Ulster rugby culture if people are boycotting that game. And then Ryan bids to shed the tag of the money man. That's the notion there, that Tom Ryan isn't just an accountant because he was an accountant. He's also the treasurer of the Fawkes Hurling Club and a coach there, and he's a Carlow GAA fan. So I think just pigeonholing him as a finance guy is wrong. As Paul Rice said yesterday, that you've got to give everybody an opportunity. The Irish Times lead story, that's their lead is the Gordon Darcy column. Resilience sets players and clubs apart. His column is about the fact that being a professional sports person is one of the best jobs in the world. I mean, it is, unless you're a boxer and you're getting punched in the head.
It's still good, even at that. I'd rather be a boxer than a rugby player taking.
Would you?
Yeah, I think so. I watch the rugby matches and I'm watching it through through my fingers, because it's some of those hits are unbelievable.
Yeah.
But I think with boxing, it's the same with them. It's probably conditioning, and
you get conditioned
being used to it and knowing how to take it, and what way to just brace yourself. But a lot of respect for those guys. Taking
a punch, like, you just have to try and roll with it. Is that the?
Yeah, just brace yourself for it, Yeah.
If you brace yourself, do you tense yourself?
Sometimes, yeah. It just depends. I think you just get there's no right way to do it. I think if you just take, you just take it. It's the one if you see it, you're fine. If you see the punch coming, you're fine. It's the one you don't see that will really hurt you.
Because you're going in the opposite direction, and it's
because it's like an unexpected. It's like when you see in a street fight someone gets hit on the sly from or gets caught unawares, and they get knocked out straight away. But if you can see a punch coming at you, I think you're grand.
Yeah,
probably like these guys as well. The same,
the tackle that they can't see. Yeah, so that's that's Gordon Darcy Osworth reading on Match Week in particular, and then so moving to the Examiner, the lead story there is embrace the expectation. This is the Munster coach who's come in the middle of the season and is now on the verge of taking his team to the Champions Cup final. Van Graan, it's all or nothing. If you fall short, there's no second place, which is of course true. And we have the Daily Mail. Their lead story is no TV review. New GAA boss insists the Sky TV deal will stand, and it's going to stand for the duration, which takes us all the way through to 2021, and it can't be brought up again at Congress until 2020. So he's nipping that conversation in the bud for now. And it looks like Keith Earls might be fit to start this weekend, which would be a huge boost for Munster. And then finally for me, The Guardian, Joy Neville on beating all male comers to be named World Rugby's best referee. So that's the amazing story of Joy Neville being the best referee in the world. And so congratulations to her, and we'll talk to her again real soon on the show. What have you got for us?
First up is the Irish Daily Star. On the back page is Pogba crisis talks, and this is a kind of across all the papers. Pogba and Mourinho at heads with each other, and I'm not sure if there's it seems to be something behind the story, It's
gone on long enough.
I wonder how much is, his lifestyle and social media, all this stuff is being used as an excuse, but you've seen him when he's been played it correctly and in the right position. He's one of the most effective midfielders in the world. Like last week, he dominated the second half against Man City, and now this week it's crisis talk Pogba. He's been dropped, so there's something amiss there. There's some
it's almost as if he's not being managed properly.
Yeah, it's just that's it. Don't say that around radio. But Jeremy Cross has a bit on the inside, and he says he has company in the shape of Angel Di Maria, Memphis Depay, Luke Shaw, and Victor Lindelof, while the jury is still out on Alexis Sanchez. Where's he getting that from? Alexis Sanchez has been one of the better attacking footballers. So how's the jury still out? I don't know.
I presume he means at Man United, right? And it's, again, you would have to say it's the manager's responsibility to get the best out of his players. That's literally his job description.
I know. Did he play he's kind of overloaded in the top three positions. It's like they can't.
The bones of the story in some of the other papers is that that Mourinho is going to be allowed to sell Pogba after this, and so then he'll be given the money that they get from selling him, and they might sell Sanchez as well because they got him for nothing, so they can make a quick 50 million profit on him.
I know.
And then suddenly they've loads of money to spend.
Where do you go after two players like that? And they'll go on. You see what he did when he left United already at Juventus, and you'll see what he'll do if he goes on again. It'll be even more embarrassing this time around.
At least he'll get some money back from this time. That would be the.
Also, going back to the general Tom Ryan hints at Dublin maybe having 2 home games in the Super 8, not ruling it out when the rules state that you should have 1 home and away. But
that third game is going to be an issue. But if Dublin at least have 1 game out of Croker, that'd be okay.
Yeah. It's interesting that across the papers again, it's about the commercial side, and obviously playing in Croke Park is the most lucrative for them. So why wouldn't you? In the Herald, Keane on the mend. Keane O'Sullivan doing everything he can. Not sure when he will be back yet from shoulder surgery, but he hopes to be back by mid-July.
Did you ever have any shoulders, any shoulder issues?
No, very fortunate. Boxers ever have very strong shoulders. Most of them, it's where you get, all your work is done. So I've never had shoulders. Sometimes you get the rotator cuff.
Yeah.
Some guys have injuries with that, but for me, no.
Because once that's gone, getting it back up to the level that it was supposed to be at. Yeah. That was one of the injuries Hay had. I think he tore a labrum at the end of last year. Yeah,
I remember there's a famous fight with Danny Williams, British heavyweight guy who actually beat Mike Tyson and lost to Vitaly Klitschko. But he fought a fight, and during the fight his shoulder dislocated. And he fought on and won the fight. If you just look at it, I'm sure you can Google it, Danny Williams dislocated shoulder fight. And,
that's courage.
Yeah, he done well. On to the Mirror, the lead story. I'll fight you for Fred. Mourinho looking to get into Guardiola again and Pep to the signature of Fred from Shakhtar Donetsk, similar to how he got Sanchez.
It's not the worst tactic. It's like, let's see who Pep Guardiola wants and let's just try and buy them.
I know, yeah. I haven't seen much of Fred. What's your assessment?
I don't know if, you assume that most of the stuff that Pep is doing at the moment, it's players who will actually be able to come in and play in the team as opposed to just puff out the squad. So,
maybe he'll replace Sanchez or Pogba.
Definitely, yeah.
This is in a couple of the papers, and I know you guys talked about it last night. Joe talked about it with Kevin. Sam Allardyce has been, trialled by fans.
Yeah.
Do you want Sam? Everton fans asked if they trust the manager and his coaches to get the best out of the team. Was it done like it's a to rate him on a scale from 0 to 10?
Yeah. I mean,
it's interesting. It's interesting. It's
giving the fans a lot of power.
Yeah.
Because if they all come back with a 3, what do? You just go, sorry. I mean, the fans have spoken.
Gives them an out, I suppose. How would you assess Sam Allardyce's time at Everton?
I'm slightly disappointed. I thought that he was going to actually have a much more significant impact than he has.
He started well and seems to have fizzled out a little bit.
They got safety straight away, and then it's hard to know if there was a full off season and a full okay, I've bought all these players and now it's my squad and I've reshaped and I've shipped out any of the ones that I don't want, but they're not playing great football. He hasn't inspired any love from the players or the fans, and it's kind of like
he doesn't do. I guess he's so long around the game and he's such not an abrasive character, but just he's set in his ways and he's not gonna change or soften it anyway just for Everton, I guess.
Yeah.
If it was maybe City or United or Chelsea, he might be a little bit more.
I mean, they've got loads
refined.
of money now. They do have enough money for you to be able to go out and try and buy good players who would fit a better style of football. It's I guess I'm biased a little bit towards that brief time that he had at Bolton, where he signed a bunch of very good footballers like
AJ Akacha
and Ivan Campo. Yeah, they played really good football for a while.
Yeah, they were a great team.
And so if I felt like maybe with the money and the setup at Everton, he could replicate a bit of that.
Well, you had Kevin Nolan.
But I'm surprised he hasn't managed to somehow dig Kevin Nolan out again.
On to the Sun, lead story. I won't take off. Pogba is on the plane to Bournemouth and says he wants to stay. And in some of the other papers, they're saying that he's been talking to Michael Carrick and David De Gea, and they're trying to
convince him.
Convince him or curb his ways, or tell him to the media, social media stuff. And I don't know what the big deal is. He's a young guy. That's the world. It's a generational thing, and I think going forward that'll be the way of most footballers.
It seemed like Man United actually wanted that as well, because it was a way for them to reach new fans by signing him and having his social media presence.
Pogback, remember that? Hashtag Pogback. He had his own emoji and stuff like that.
Yeah, so you can't have your cake and eat it too.
Yeah. Also, AJI's Wilder double, the story kind of going around the place that they won 2 fights against Deontay Wilder.
Why is this a conversation?
I guess for boxing reasons it will be a guarantee that if he loses they'll get a rematch and a chance, but it's also business in terms of the money that they'll set to earn.
Yeah.
And it's been touted around. Eddie Hearn's been saying we're going to pay him 8 million or just over that, £8 million. We've offered Wilder £8 million. They think the fight will do around maybe 40 million. And that would be a good percentage of that, but I think it's all there. He's negotiating in the media. He's using the media as a negotiating tool and a bargaining tool just to get Wilder to accept. They'll probably end up paying him something like 10 million, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. And that's fair enough for somebody.
I think so. But I think what Wilder would want is a share of the revenue.
Yeah.
The pay-per-view and the gate. And not have by having a set fee, a set purse. Of course, you get a guarantee.
Yeah.
But there's no. This will be a huge fight, and I think it'll do bigger than it'll probably be the biggest fight in history in terms of money. I think it'll outdo Pacquiao and Mayweather. I think.
Right.
I'm not sure. I think Anthony Joshua is a big star in the United States. People are definitely aware of him.
Yeah.
But
didn't Floyd Mayweather make like 200 quid from that fight?
200 quid.
200 million?
Yeah, I know, but it'll be. I guess it's all in the negotiation and the deal you work out for yourself. You know, there's no, like, I think there's, well, I don't know if there's nothing better, but Al Heyman has a reputation as being very strong for his fighters who manages Deontay Wilder, and the first thing someone ever said to me about Al Heyman was that he gets you paid.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, you know, all this posturing by Eddie Hearn and using the media and all these videos that he does saying, you know, this is what we're paying, this more than you've ever been paid before.
Yeah, but who cares?
It doesn't mean nothing. I think when it comes to the table, the serious work will be done, and Al Heyman will be fully aware of what the revenue will be, you know, in terms of across the board, in terms of pay-per-view, stadium, live gate, the TV. So
this will be a fight in the UK.
They're talking about doing it in Wembley before the weather turns, so obviously maybe before September. Yeah. Summertime, SummerSlam in Wembley.
Yeah, that'd be good. Like an August fight in Wembley.
Yeah, it'd be amazing.
And a rematch in Vegas?
And a rematch in Vegas, yeah. Okay. Maybe before the end of the year.
December, perfect.
Yeah, early next year. So we'll see. It'll be great for boxing if it does happen. It
doesn't feel like Anthony Joshua would hammer Deontay Wilder after the last fight that we've seen.
Well, the last two fights, I think it's kind of, and I think it's just, I guess a sobering kind of realization, not a reality check for the AJ fans, you know, I guess, because up to that point he'd steamrolled everybody, just purely dominated them and blasted them out of there. And against Takam and against Parker, looked a little unsure, looked a little cautious, I would say, you know. Understandably, in some ways, the fact that he was winning the fights comfortably, but never extended himself to knock them out or to go, you know, by boxing within himself, not taking any risk, not entertained, not looking as dominant or as explosive, but winning the fights and winning them convincingly. And but still, I could see he was trying to weigh that up in his mind as he was fighting. Should I definitely against Parker, should I go all out or should I just box conservatively here? And then when Parker rushed him and attacked him, he kind of looked disorganized, you know. And I think, to me, I think Wilder has a serious fight, a serious chance of winning the fight, because Anthony Joshua is very robust, very rigid in his style, and it's very much boxing by the numbers. It's very like jab, 1-2 hook. It's keeping very structured and there's nothing kind of improvised or kind of done wildly, you know. If a fight broke out, like when Parker rushed Joshua in the last fight and he kind of got disorganized. He rushed him, made him disorganized, and he kind of looked a little bit lost. Yeah. And there's nobody more wild or unorganized. When you fight somebody with that rigid style, that's what you need to beat them, than Deontay Wilder. Right. Like, sometimes I don't think he knows what he's doing half the time, but it works, you know. He's just kind of an instinctual fighter, and he throws punches from different angles, not kind of punches that you'd be used to seeing, kind of overhand punches, and especially for someone of that size. And he's a concussive puncher too, so I think it's very. I would slightly favour Wilder. If I was a betting man, I would favour Wilder.
This should happen now, really, because either of them could lose a fight at any point now. So that, like,
well, why wait as well? Why wait? Because in the waiting, if they have another fight, like we've seen, has this fight lost a little bit of its allure because Joshua didn't look so good? Yeah. So if they have another fight each, and like, Josh was coming off 2 good wins, although he didn't look great, and up to that point, like, all of his previous fights, so he still has that momentum. Yeah. And Wilder's coming off a career best victory, I believe, against Luis Ortiz. So now, in the waiting, the fight doesn't grow. Like, people aren't going to want it any more than they want it right now.
Yeah. So let's get it on, see what happens.
Yeah, let's get it on,
and see how much Al Heyman can make for his man. Last.
There's just the Racing Post. Q Card has retired. Why we all adore him. There's tributes to him, and there's not much else going on, you know. On the back, I guess this is more for your betting, picking cherries that United can bounce back against Bournemouth. They're tipping United to beat Bournemouth tonight, 7:45 kickoff, and a few bits in the Telegraph. Harry Kane never in doubt. No need for Kane to appeal. This time his 26th goal moves him closer to Salah, race for the golden boot. So that's, what did you think about that, Harry Kane?
Stealing the goal.
Did he touch it?
It's not a great look, is it? Like stealing goals from your teammates. And swearing on your daughter's life.
I think that was just a little bit like, I kind of forgot himself, but it was actually a little bit more like the real Harry Kane. I guess the real person behind it. You know, it's not like you know, it just kind of came off. You know, it just kind of rolled off the tongue. I guess. You know, it's
too
more
young
like,
for me to really know her that well.
Yeah, but you better have touched it now after swearing on his daughter's life.
Yeah. Good morning, Ger and Andy from a sunny Bray. Yes, sunny, says Mark. Yeah, it is. Apparently, it's sunny outside already. Yeah. It's like the 2 days of summer.
Well, I heard when I got in here, it was so early, and then I heard on the radio that there was going to be a mini heat wave, and I said, it's just some sort of spoof advert, you know. But we'll see. Hopefully, we have some good weather. And
then Martin Regan is asking us some boxing questions, but we'll come back to that a little bit later on your comments. So if anyone does have any boxing queries, or if you want to ask Andy or indeed Eric Donovan anything, you can tweet us at OffTheBallAM is the Twitter handle for the show. You can always leave a comment on YouTube, youtube.com/OffTheBall. And remember to subscribe to that as well, so you'll get all of our good videos. And there are plenty of them, some of which we're about to bring you right now, because yesterday Oisin Langan was down at Thomond Park for the Munster press conference, and he caught up with the Munster coach Johann Van Graan. Here he is speaking about the importance of Keith Earls.
How big a boost would it be if Keith Earls was available?
Yeah, a massive boost. He's part and parcel of this team. He brings in such a lot of experience, and he's been on fire the whole year once he's been on the field. So he's looking forward to the week, and hopefully he can get through training. And whenever also part of the team, gives a lot of guys around him confidence. So it'd be great to have him if he's ready to go.
How beneficial was the tour, as we'll call it, to South Africa? 2 wins, the only team to do that in South Africa, and we saw at the end with the celebrations of the players and indeed yourselves in the coaching box what it meant.
Yeah, when the fixtures came out, it was never ideal to travel between a quarter-final and a semi-final. It wasn't something that we could control. You had to win a quarter-final to be in that position. We used it as a massive positive. We said we needed balance on the tour. You don't go on tours these days this much. We bonded as a squad, had some time to sit around the dinner table and get to know each other a lot better. But we also trained really hard. We trained smartly. We tried to rectify one of the things we weren't happy with against Toulon. We gave the Cheetahs and the Kings the respect that they deserved, whilst also doing one or two small things in preparation for Racing Metro.
It's Racing Metro. The old school names are the best, Johan. Okay, so let's move on, because Andrew Conway, obviously in amazing form, that one of the greatest tries in Munster history in the quarterfinals. Here he is talking to Oisin about the progression of his career.
Yeah, definitely. That's probably what I struggled with coming from school and training away and everything going well and being one of the better players on teams that you're playing in, and you don't have a professional mindset at that stage. You're just playing rugby because that's what I did in school, and other guys play soccer, and some guys are good at it and some guys aren't. There's obviously you train, but there's not a massive amount of work that goes into it at that point. So on reflection, if I look back on the first few years of my career, I probably thought that that's just what you do. You rock up to training, you do your weights, you've got a schedule, and you stick to that, and then you become good you kick on because of that. And it took me a few years to find out that this is just my journey, not anyone else's. That my best path to be as successful as I hope I can be is to really nail down some core skills as a back three player, to nail down a work rate that you stick to week in, week out, and to be consistent with that. I probably figured that out a few years ago and would go into it for a month and then say, oh no, I'm actually getting better at that, and then taper off for 2 weeks. It's just being consistent with all the different skills that are needed, working with the D coach, working with Felix in the air, working with all sorts. So it took me a few years, but and I think there's definitely so much more to go. If you're just what you can take from looking at the really successful guys in here and with Ireland is they're the lads who are staying on the pitch after, they're the lads who are out before doing their warm-ups, they're the guys who are recovering well, they're the guys who are eating well. It's just they're the guys who are looking into their details. So there's no guys who don't take the chances and they're making the best for themselves.
Andrew Conway is still only 26, so he'll be 27 in July. It's interesting to hear people talk about that like he was a superstar as a kid and kind of coasted for ages until like there's a wake-up call at some point and it's like, okay, actually, you know what, I need to seize my own destiny.
Yeah, and talking about having that moment when he realised that he had to, knuckle down or just work on 3 or 4 different things and just to make himself a better player.
Yeah.
And having that vision and it's quite impressive to hear him say that, and that he realised that himself that he had to do that,
When you went to the Cronk, did you coast for a while? Did you like, oh look, I'm in the Cronk, I've made it? No.
You couldn't in there because you had to earn it, you had to prove yourself every day walking into that gym.
Okay.
And
you're going to get
definitely punched. There was definitely no coasting
today. Send him in with one of the other lads.
Yeah,
a little bit of sparring.
Yeah, well, there was you walk in there every day, and as I said before, you walk in, the first thing you hear is fresh meat, and that's what they're calling you as you walk in, and every day. But eventually, after a month or two sparring every day, I was the one who they were sending the fresh meat into. It was the roles were reversed, and I'd earned my place there. So. No, there was definitely no coasting in the Cronk.
The fresh meat that you're like, what are they? Who's the fresh meat?
Yeah, me.
You make it sound like first day in prison.
Yeah, no, but it also gives you great buzz and gives you okay, I'll be the fresh meat. Now we'll see how fresh see how you like it.
Yeah.
So. It's good.
It's battle is declared. Right, last point on the rugby here. Brian O'Driscoll was in the studio obviously on Monday night. You can check it out over on youtube.com/offtheball. Here's how he sees Munster getting on this weekend.
I always liked their chances.
Did you, yeah?
I always did. I think they're a vastly improved team on last year. They managed to get to a semi-final probably when they shouldn't, playing on raw emotion. I think they've added a huge amount of... The personnel haven't changed massively, but I think tactically they've gotten an awful lot better. I think they've got Keatley playing really well. I think Conor Murray playing the best rugby of his life. A pack that's a very clear idea as to what they need to do with the source of ball they're getting from scrum and line out. And they don't know when they're beaten. They go 14-0 down to the Cheetahs. I saw it on social media. I saw 2 early tries within half an hour. I thought lots of teams have struggled down there, and I couldn't believe watching that they'd managed to sneak it with that Conor Murray 55-metre penalty or whatever it was.
They went down early to the Southern Kings. They went down early to Racing.
But that never fazed them. They're one team that absolutely don't get fazed by that. If they concede early, they know they have firepower and that they can score themselves and they'll create opportunities. It's just a matter of taking advantage of that. And that's why I think it becomes a mental battle at semi-final level and final level. And it would be so interesting to see the 2 Irish provinces in the final from a tactical perspective, because there would be such huge nervousness knowing each other so well. And that's why I hope it does happen, because I'd be really interested to see tactically who was able to come out on top. We have a while to go before any of that happens, but I like Munster down there. They won't be afraid of Racing. They've played them 4 times over the last 3 years, or even the last 2 years. They have the back-to-back
seasons,
3-1 in that.
Yeah, all right. So, Brian O'Driscoll, whetting your appetite for the weekend. Of course, the Leinster game is live on Newstalk on Off the Ball on Saturday afternoon. Now, Broken Rings is a 2-part documentary series that tells the story of the chaos and heartbreak experienced by the Irish boxing team at the 2016 Rio Olympic Games. This was one of the most promising Irish sports teams ever assembled, 2 world champions and several other medal favourites. Hopes were very high as media and fans alike anticipated a rich haul of medals. Once the game started, though, the dream soured and soured quickly. Defeat after defeat in the ring was played out against a backdrop of controversy, tabloid headlines, allegations of drug use, gambling and corruption. So that makes it sound pretty good. Here's a clip from part 1, which aired on Monday night at 9:30 on Air Sport. Next Monday night at 9:30 on Air Sport is part 2. This is Billy Walsh and Kenneth Egan talking about the beginning of the high performance unit in Irish boxing.
We had to change the mindsets. We had to change the physical attributes of the boxers that were training long and slow. The game had gone to a sprint, and we had to change the type of training that they were all doing, and then change that engine, So, and then obviously the psychic, because we were happy to be kings of Ireland, but we wanted them to be kings of the world and the kings of Europe. So,
at the first ever training session, Billy Walsh got into the ring and announced saying we're starting a high performance coaching session now, would all the coaches leave? Nobody was allowed into the individual training session other than the designated coaches, which was our Billy Walsh, Cathal O'Grady, Gary Keegan, and all the club coaches were excluded, and that caused serious resentment.
I don't think the team was good enough. Technically, you know, we were a good fight. We could fight all day long, and there was good stamina and all there. But technically, we were very poor. And I'm not slagging coaches off in Ireland or anything like that, but we needed to raise our game, and we'd no one to raise it for us. We'd no one to teach us how to mix it with the best in the world.
We were crying out for a better structure. We were crying out for professionalism. I was anyway. The way it was before was we'd go to Dublin once a week. A team would assemble there. You would train twice, and then that would be it. You might do a Sunday session very rarely. That would be in the weeks before major competitions. Then you'd probably have 2 or 3 weeks where you train together, maybe in Gormitown or somewhere abroad where you train with a different country, and then you'd be in competition. And that would be it. And you would often, it would be a different coach every time. You know, you'd never work with the coach, and all of a sudden he's taking you into the most important competition of the year. So it wasn't ideal, to say the least.
We were just known as that nation that, actually, you know, we go in, we give it a good lash in the ring, and we might pip a top 8, but medals still elude us, you know.
So Keegan was the obvious choice to head up the program. So he was appointed as the first head of the high performance program, and he had a very clear. I mean, they were fortunate in ways because he was a visionary way before his time.
When Gary Keegan came in, I didn't know Gary from Adam. Small guy, didn't know he had a boxing background, knew nothing about him. But when he came in, he had a serious face on him. And I was thinking, this is what we need here, you know. He came into the gym, we were all training there, and he drew a line across the floor with his foot. I was setting up this new program, he said, high performance unit. Whoever's interested, please step across.
All right, Andy's obviously still with us, and that clip courtesy of Air Sports, of course. Part 2 airs next Monday night at 9:30 as well. Eric Donovan is joining us on Skype. Good morning to you, Eric.
Morning, lads.
How are you doing?
Oh, good.
So, what's your recollection of your first exposure to the high performance unit?
I think I was 17 when I went onto the team initially, and I wasn't there for the first practical training session that Ger and Andy had delivered. But I remember Roy Sheen actually saying, Roy Sheen rang me up afterwards and said, or maybe I rang him and I said, well, what's the new coach like? And Roy said, oh, Eric, he's unbelievable. And guess what he said? I said, well, he has a photograph of you. I said, what? Yeah, he has a photograph of you from the European Schoolboy Championships. One of his young boxers from Georgia was in a picture with me, and he gave it to Zor on his travels. I had the Irish tracksuit on me and said, there, you know, best of luck and take this with you. So yeah, he arrived in Ireland with a photograph of me, so that was kind of a bit weird. But when I got to meet him and got to train with him and stuff like that, he was class. But the high performance setup, Gary Keegan, I remember him saying to me, I always felt I was just a boxer, you know what I mean? And boxing was kind of like a hobby. But Gary Keegan said to me, you're now a professional athlete. It was the first time I ever heard that, like. And I really liked his vision. I liked his ideas. I loved his whole approach to what he wanted to do, what he wanted to achieve, and you know, you just would love to work with him and work for him. And Gary was a great man. He didn't take, like, he was great at putting people in places and trusting them to do their job, and then he was in the background keeping the whole ship going and directing it in the right way. So yeah, it was brilliant. It was amazing to be a part of it. Really, really loved it.
And you'd kind of seen the transition from before that, when that didn't exist. So was it a culture shock for everybody? Like, you clearly really wanted it and were ready for it, but were there a bunch of other people around you who were like, nah, this is all nonsense?
Yeah, there were definitely older guys who had been, you know, used to the status quo and doing things their way, and didn't agree with it. And there, for the first couple of years, there was some resistance from the boxers themselves. You know, I know there was a lot of external resistance from, like, the board or whoever at the IABA or the club coaches and stuff, as you touched on in the documentary. But certainly there was 2 or 3 guys, especially who didn't go along or didn't, you know, toe the line. But as Eric said, you know, Gary was that type of man, and for me as a young boxer, he was inspiring. And like Eric said, you wanted to work for him. You know, you push yourself. You wanted to. With all those guys, with Billy and so, being a young boxer like that, being impressionable, when you're doing a session, you want to impress them. You know, so you're working harder than everybody else. You're making sure that you're the first in the runs or the sprints, and the first in the back. You know, doing everything and trying to be at the top of the line, just so you can impress them. And that's what they inspired. And you know, we all improved from that. But yeah, certainly there were guys who didn't see that vision the same way. You know, all of them thought like, I've done so well at this point. You know, why should I change now?
Yeah. Eric, you mentioned giving Roy Sheehan a call. For people who don't know, you guys are literally neighbours. You're kind of like living a couple of houses apart at this point in your life. So you guys have clearly driven each other on, but the impact of having a team of people where you're all exposed to each other and all kind of in different weights, but actually driving the standards collectively, that's the other bit of magic in all this, is that, you know, it's great to have a proper coaching system, but unless the players, in this case the boxers, actually drive each other on and set the standards, it's kind of pointless.
Yeah, I agree. And we're trying to create a culture, because the old culture, unfortunately, and probably for the first year or two even of the high performance, like when you went away with the Irish team, the first thing you put in your bag was your shoes, your jeans and your shirt. And you're going away on international trips. And I kind of came into that culture, and I kind of thought, well, this is great, sure. Like, this was the bar that was being raised by the people before, you know, and you know, Gary Keegan and Billy and Zor, the whole high performance staff wanted to try and get away from that. And I think Andy touched on it there. You could see that the older guys that were used to the old system, they didn't really take to it too well. Didn't take to the philosophies, I suppose, of the high performance unit. But no, you need everybody to tap into it. Like, this is something that could have really backfired. It could have backfired from the very start. I mean, like, we were living upstairs in the gym initially for the first couple of months before we even, I suppose, sourced funding for hotels or apartments or whatever. We were living upstairs on mattresses. So
well, there was a time when, like, there was 24 of us sleeping in one room on the ground, you know, and that was St. Stephen's night, 2003.
Right.
Yeah. So 2004 maybe, St. Stephen's night, like so, and we were told to be there. You know, we had to be there, or else you're not going to make the squad. And I was there. I didn't like it. I was there, you know, but there were some guys who weren't there, and they suffered. Like, not that they suffered, but they paid the price for it. You know?
It's a psychological test. Can you?
Yeah, it was,
are you willing to commit to this thing? And if you are, then anything is possible.
And without any like, you'll never get anywhere without. You have to, somewhere along the line you're going to have to sacrifice, you know. But that was it, and I think that was a little test for the people who wanted to be there, you know.
The point that Eric makes about you guys packing your going out clothes in your bag before the training gear, like, you know, this happens in a lot of sports. Like, there's definitely there's a famous story about it.
Just the way it was, you know. It's just the way it was, wasn't it, Eric? Like, you just. I hate that phrase now, but like, when you lose on the booze and just, you know, oh sure, we're in Greece anyway, you know, we've bought.
I think the psyche as well, though, wasn't
it? You would have went out and boxed your best, you know, and done everything up to that point. It wouldn't have been like you were going, but so you were here now. You got 3 days left. You're in a sunny place with a nice. You've never been there before.
Yeah.
So go out and enjoy it. That would be.
I think it's because most of the tournaments that we previously went to in the past would go on for 10 days or maybe 2 weeks. And the Irish team would be gone out with by day 5 or day 6. So you're left with a week or 10 days. So I think people were already preparing for that in their mind, you know.
Well, one of the big was, I guess, one of the most things they came up against was, once you lost, the idea that you had to go on and train, you know, like, because usually, like I said, you'd lose your fight, and then you'd have 3 or 4 days just, you know, lounging around, having a look at the city or wherever you were. But no, with Gary and Billy, It was no, okay, you were still up at 7 a.m. in the morning, you're still doing your morning session, and then in the afternoon you're going to join the team and do your afternoon session.
Yeah,
you know, and
this is a great chance for us to actually get you to be a better fighter. And,
yeah,
you know,
and even at some stage they'd set up sparring or technical sessions with other countries. So they were using every opportunity, you know, and I thought it was great, but they did come up against a lot of resistance from the older guys. And, but that's, I guess, going into any system and trying to change it, it's always going to be that sort of thing with people, you know.
Yeah, but you started to see results pretty quickly, Eric, right? Like you guys all started to win stuff.
Yeah, like I suppose the high performance was initially up and running by 2003. First competition I had was the Four Nations Seniors, but I wasn't the senior champion of Ireland. The Four Nations Seniors is gone now, actually, but it was a great tournament. And the guys in my weight in Ireland, they couldn't make the weight category, so they sent me for experience. And I went along and won the Four Seniors, or the Four Nations. And so that put me onto funding. So that was a great thing for me at that age. So that enabled me to go up to Dublin and not feel resentful about it, to be able to go up and stay there for the 4 or 5 days every week. And from then on, I pushed, you know, and really, really enjoyed it, because even in terms of the technical breakdowns of the training sessions, and I know Zor would have his English would be very poor, but his technical demonstrations would simplify everything for you, and it would make so much sense, and he could turn southpaw or orthodox and give that demonstration so effective. And I loved working with him, and I worked closely with Billy as well, but more so Zor, because I was the southpaw and I just liked what Zor could do for a southpaw. And you know, most, like, the team was kind of split 50-50. Billy would work with a lot of the orthodox fighters. They'd all work with all fighters, but it was kind of, Billy was doing pads and Zor was doing pads. I would veer towards Zor, and you know, you might have other guys like Jamie Moore or Andy Murray or that would have veered off towards Billy, you know, because they would have been strong orthodox fighters. But I just loved the conditions. I felt myself improving there every week, because I kind of feel at club level we're brought to a level. Like Zor taught me how to throw a left hook. He taught me how to throw a left hook, and I was 17 years of age. I never threw a left hook because I didn't need to throw a left hook. I won everything all the way up without having to throw a left hook. I didn't even know I could throw a left hook. It's kind of crazy, because I lead with my right hand, and it was always like right, left, right hook, right, left, right hook. But Zor taught me how to throw this one, and I kind of felt like that was a dangerous punch to throw, where I would leave myself very vulnerable. Yeah, where I'd leave myself so vulnerable. But when Zor taught me how to throw that punch, he said that can be a game changer for you, and he was dead right, because that's what won me my first senior title against another southpaw, and it was the punch to beat another southpaw. And I won my first senior title, and the club's first title since its foundation in 45 years previous. You know,
it's interesting, right, hearing the technical genius of Zor, because there's a load of bullshit around funding in 2004 and 2008 at the Olympic Games, where the accreditation is an issue and they don't have the right supports. Zor is part of the team in 2004, but he's not in your corner in the Olympics. And when you get off the plane after the Olympics having lost, you're like, what happened? And Zor immediately can diagnose, to the point where you think if he was in the corner, maybe things are different in your Olympic career, right?
Certainly, yeah. If I would have I would have definitely done better, you know, in the Olympics. I probably would have won that fight that I lost. Not having Zor in the corner definitely affected me. But he just gave us the technique and the knowledge that we were missing. You know, as Kenny said in the clip, we were always known for our heart. We would always go and fight hard, and we would always push the best nations right to the edge. We'd never win, you know. More often than not, we would just come up short, and we were always lacking the technical know-how of how, because amateur boxing at that stage anyway, when it was the computer scoring, was very technical, and it was all around feints and outmaneuvering your opponent and then making him pay, you know. Like, it's all about feinting, letting them punch and then countering them. And Zor just gave us the techniques and the know-how of how to do that, and he educated, like, Billy Billy very much learned from Zo, you know, and I think even if you see Billy and even if you see Pete Taylor and Mike Collins' father and Eddie Bulger, anything they do that's suitable to amateur boxing now, not that they don't know their own, there's a lot from what you see Zo do, you know. And he's like you can see his signature on a lot of the good fighters now that even now, like when I see Carl Frampton box and I see stuff that he does and I see that I can see Zo, like his fingerprints all over him. I mean, I can see that's Zo's move right there that he's doing. And like he definitely has changed. I think he's had as for a single man, he's had the biggest impact on Irish boxing ever.
What did he do? What did he see in 2004 in the Olympics that would have got you out of the trouble?
Well, I was fighting a guy who, Hassan Ndam from Cameroon, who up to that point had been an aggressive fighter, and I was strictly a counterpuncher. So I was expecting this guy to come at me, and I'd counterpunch him, move around, and I would outpoint him, and that was the way it was. And when we got out there, he had completely switched his tactics and went on the back foot and was moving around me. Not coming forward, not throwing any punches, waiting for me to punch. And as a counterpuncher, that's kind of the best tactic you can do. And I was chasing him then, and he got up in the scores, and I couldn't really claw it back. And as I said in the documentary, I was at a loss to how, at that stage, you know, I was still quite young, and I just didn't know how I could have counteracted that, and what I could have done to win the fight. And thinking about it after, you know, the 10 days after the Olympics in the village, and just going over and over, always in the back of your mind. Then get off the plane, there's a group of people there, you know, to welcome you home and say well done. And Zo says, I said, Zo, what happened in the fight? Pull me to one side. What happened in the fight? What did you think? What could I have done? And he just simply said one thing: show punch. And that's, as I said in the documentary, it doesn't really make sense. It's not a technical term, but it was the language, this kind of language that we had developed between ourselves that didn't really make sense, but I knew exactly what it was.
It was our language, Andy.
Yeah,
our language.
Zo has behind, like Zo has 3 or 4 phrases behind, which was a check hook. You know, show punch was a feint, and different.
Two eyes was twice.
But we knew we had you know, this kind of forehand speech that we'd created amongst ourselves, and when he told me that show punch, it just rung true, and I knew had I heard that during the fight, I would have won.
Yeah, like when Andy's saying that about Zor having the biggest single impact, it does seem as if there was a kind of very careful ecosystem in place as well. That like you needed Gary Keegan to come in and establish the framework. You needed Billy to kind of bring everybody along, and then you needed Zor to make sure that the technical expertise was injected into it. So it's kind of like you know, the 3 leaves of the clover or whatever it is that St. Patrick used.
Look, it was even within the system. I think they realised, like Zo, like the first year the high performance was inaugurated, we went to Finland, was the first senior competition. We all did well. We went to the 4 nations. We all did well. We were the leading nation in both of those. We went to another multi-nations. We did well, and then we built up to the World Championships in Bangkok. But they didn't send Zo as the main coach. Zo didn't go. Zo travelled with the junior squad to the World Juniors. He wasn't sent. Like they thought, okay, to me, my reading of the situation was that, oh, we can use this guy, get all his wealth, and we'll send Billy and with the coach were Billy and Cathal O'Grady and Gary, and none of us medalled at the like Kennedy got the last 8, I got to the last 16, and all the other boxers lost in the first fight in Bangkok. And I think there was a realization then that, like, look, we're going to have to bring this guy with us, because Zo doesn't just bring the technical side, he also has those relationships with the other nations in terms of the Eastern European countries. He's very well respected around the world, you know, and I'm sure it's been well publicised now, but like whenever there's a chance to poach him by other countries, they're all vying for him.
Yeah.
You know, they're all vying for his services. So he's very well respected. He has great relationships with the other countries in terms of the officials, and also what he can bring in terms of the fights, from fight to fight, the technical breakdown of it, and analysing an opponent and how to your strategy and how you should negotiate the fight.
Yeah. Eric, there was a couple of specific things I wanted to ask you about the 2004 Olympic qualifiers. Was that in Azerbaijan?
Yeah, it was. You're going back to it's kind of like following on from the documentary there the other night. Like, I suppose just watching that, like, is just, it make you feel sad that this is happening to your sport, because it highlights your sport in a very negative light. But it's something that we all knew for many of years and experienced, but it's never really came to public knowledge or the way it was in the documentary. Anyways, but yeah, I suppose my Olympic qualifiers, Andy was after qualifying for Athens Olympic Games. He was the only one on the team to qualify at that time. So the rest of us went to our final qualifier, hoping to join him on the plane. This time they were splitting the weights in half, so half of the weight categories had a qualifier in somewhere around, I think it was Western Europe, and the other half of the weight categories were in Eastern Europe and Azerbaijan. So I'm training, I'm trying to make bantamweight, which is 8.5 stone, and I'm absolutely killed at the weight. I really am. I'm drained out, and I'm saying to myself, I'm never making this weight again, ever. But I come down to the scales, the official weigh-in in the morning. I'm 0.5 over the weight, and I'm after training all the night before. Zor tells me okay, let's get the gear on you again and train. So I trained, came back to the scales, and I think I barely lost it, but it was kind of flashing on the scales, so they wouldn't allow it. There was 54.05, so me and Zor, we had to go for a walk. Zor hasn't got great English or anything at this stage, but he's going for a walk and he's trying to demonstrate for me to keep spitting, and hopefully finally make the weight. So we're walking down. He's trying to tell me to force out pee-pee as well. He's going, need to go pee-pee, you know. So we're walking down the street, and I turned to Zor and said, I think I need to go now. And there's a public toilet right side road. There was this lady outside it. She was like, I don't know if she was a security guard, but she was minding the toilets anyway. It cost 10 pence to go to the toilet. We had no money. Zor not hide that, and so Zor was trying to explain to her that I really needed to go. But he convinced her to get me in. Anyway, that's just the build up for the story. And then I drew the Georgian. In my first fight, and it was 4 2-minute rounds at that time. I had a great engine, always had. Really super engine, really super fit. First round, I come back, I'm about 12 points down, and I cannot understand how I'm 12 points down. Like, it was literally a 50-50 round. So in the corner, they just said, look, just keep going. This guy is looking tired. So go out in the second round, and I'm, again, foot to the gas and just bulldozing through him, trying to get back, because you panic a little bit as well. I brought back to about 6 points. I think it was 6 points down, and then after the third round, brought back to 3 points. And in the last round, I nearly had this guy stopped. But the bell goes and I lose by a point. And I'm absolutely devastated. I think it's a robbery. But nobody really cares. You're kind of used to it at this stage. And nobody's saying anything. A few of my friends, teammates, the coaches said, that's a disgrace. I think you won that fight. So obviously I'm eating all around me now. That's how I'm consoling myself, because I'm heartbroken. Obviously the Olympics is over, but very quickly, because my body's like a sponge, I go up like a balloon, you know. I think I'm about 59 kilos. And the Scottish official came over to the Irish team manager, who was the late Martin Power from St. Saviour's Boxing Club in Dublin. I said, I'm really sorry about your boxer earlier on, but like he said, that bell in the last round was rang 20 seconds short.
What?
Yeah. So they put in a complaint and whatever, protest, whatever it is, and they came back to me late that night, that evening, and they said the conclusion is, or result is, that I have to fight him again tomorrow. So I'm 59 kilos now. How would I even, make the weight category tomorrow? So anyways, I couldn't do it. It was impossible. We had to let it go. And then the boxer who got the decision against me, the Georgian boxer, he pulls out of his next fight against an Azerbaijan. So he doesn't even go and fight. And the Azerbaijani goes straight on to, I think he just has one fight then and qualifies for the Olympics. So, yeah. Do you know, like, we kind of accepted that. It was the norm. So you'd no point coming home and talking to people about that, because you kind of feel, they are making excuses again. we've seen this with our own two eyes time and time again. Like,
yeah, I mean, you've no choice but to accept it because that's the culture of the sport at that stage. Like, even the computer scoring massively improved things, and then the decision to get rid of the computer scoring was just like, this is corrupt.
Well, but even with the computer scoring was always, you know, you could easily manipulate it any way you wanted. You know, it's just a matter of just pressing the button repeatedly, and there's no accountability. That's it. You know, that's the way. And there's no coincidence that like these are the European Olympic qualifiers, and they're held in off the wall places like, you know, some secondary city in Azerbaijan, or like before the Olympics in 2016, there was a qualifier in Venezuela, and it just happened that Venezuela had made a huge donation to the IABA and the Olympic Committee. So these things, you know, then you don't have to be like Sherlock Holmes to deduct what's going on, and it's whoever has the power at any given stage. You know, whoever's the host country or whoever has the next Olympics. You know, whoever like is the host country of the Olympics, those boxers will get favourable qualifications, and whoever is, you know, the head of the European amateur boxing or the world boxing, those countries will get it. Like when me and Eric were amateurs, the head was a Turkish guy of the European boxing named Daganelli, and like to beat a Turkish boxer, you really had to knock him out. That was the only way you were going to get into the decision. Like I fought a guy in 2001, this guy called Seda Öztürk, and he was the world champion, I'm a junior champion, but he, you know, again, he was there by, you know, by the grace of the boxing corrupt gods or whatever. But he beat me 15 points to 1. And at those days, it was 15-point rule. So if any boxer got 15 points ahead, you were stopped.
Yeah. And it was called outscore.
Yeah. So he won the fight, but there was maybe 3 points in it. You know, it was the first day of the tournament. We arrived in Sarajevo that night, and I boxed the next morning in the early session at 11 a.m. Coincidentally, Daganelli is ousted as the president of Europe, and I fighted me 2 years later, and I stopped him on the 20-point rule. So like, that's now I didn't improve that much, and he didn't. Yeah, you know, not that I improved, and he went so badly down, but you know, there was just a fair scoring, and it's kind of it's an open secret.
Yeah, Eric, you had another story that you told us in St. Michael's in Athy that time when we were down filming about being a schoolboy in European qualifiers.
Yeah, that's like as Andy was saying, Daganelli, the Turkish delegate, he was the head official at that time over all referees and judges. So I'm the captain of the Irish cadet team. We go to the European schoolboys in Liverpool, 8-man team or something. So I'm boxing away. I beat the German, beat the Georgian, and then I get to the semi-final and I'm boxing the Turk. It's 4-4 after the first round. This fight is a 3-round fight. So it's 4-4 after the first, 8-8 after the second. And I don't know why I'm not a mile ahead. You get the scores after each round. And in the last round, I ran out straight away. First punch I hit him with was a standing count, and really, really hurt him. Ref gives him a count, and first thing you do when you have a guy wounded is you attack. So after the count, I attacked him again, and referee goes stop and gives me a count, and it's just to give him his 20 seconds instead of 8-second count. So it was ridiculous because I didn't deserve a count. I probably had a chance to put him away. Anyway, I lost the fight 13-12. Lost it by a point. And when I get out of the ring, I'm crying, I'm inconsolable, and some guy comes over to me, big suit, Eastern European. I think he's Russian, I'm not sure. And he says, he sits me down beside him and he goes, result, no good, no good. And he opens this briefcase and just takes out a wad of cash and just hands me back on $300 Russian dollars or something like that. I thought it was Monopoly money anyway, but I was happy when I got about 300 punt for it when I got home. So. Yeah, did. Give me a little bit of a lift.
Why was he giving it to you? What was the? So it was a kind of compensation.
I honestly think he felt sorry for me. I really think it was more like he was probably heartbroken for me to see get ripped off and thought might give me some sort of a lift or consolation or whatever, just give me a few bob, just as a nice gesture.
Were you still in your gear? Like it's immediately after the fight?
Yeah.
You're coming out like a minute after.
The team manager took the money off me straight away, and he just took it off me. And then Dominic O'Rourke was over there because he was my club coach, and he came over to watch. He said, "What did that guy give you?" And I said, "He gave me, I think he gave me money." And where is it? Well, the team manager took it off me, so Tom had to go and get the money off the team manager, and goes like, "What you take the money off him for?" He goes, "I didn't want to see him taking money. He's an amateur boxer. He shouldn't be taking money." I said, "Tom says that was just like, it's not a, it's not, yeah, I can understand his, his perception on it or his perspective, but Tom was just like, give back the money."
It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, but like I said, it's an open secret, and like I was listening to Eric there, and I was just remembering, like, when you got the draw, you go to a competition and you turn up, you're in great shape, and you go to the weigh-in on the first day, everyone weighs in at the same time, and then you go home, you have your breakfast, and then the coaches go off and there's the draw, and you find out who you're going to fight, and it was always like, who did you get, who you fighting, and then if you heard like you're fighting the Turk, you'd be like, oh.
Yeah.
If you heard you fighting the Russian or the Turk, you're kind of like, it was like that gallows, like, he's gone. You like, but this time tomorrow you're gonna be, eating what you want, or like, it was just like, it was like that gallows humor. You're just like,
yeah.
Okay. And you want to say, like, you'll be all right. You're good. You'll get him. It was like, it wasn't like, just more or less saying you're done for, but like, if you were Russian, you were getting beat because they were just so good, and if you were the Turk, if it was Turkey, you weren't getting the decision,
Yeah.
And, it was just so funny.
Against that backdrop, Eric, it was easy enough for us as a country to believe that we failed in Rio because the whole thing was corrupt. But it turned out that like Rio was actually just a massive confluence of corruption over here, mismanagement on our part, and then some of the fighters maybe being a little bit past their peak.
Yeah, I like. Past their peak, I'm not too sure, really. I just think circumstances do dictate, and there was probably a lot of, I suppose, internal issues before they went out. I mean, the Billy Walsh situation wasn't handled well at all. I don't think it was, and I know Billy is so good. He is a really, really good coach, and probably at that time losing him wasn't a good idea. The other three coaches are very, very good as well. But because of the circumstances of the whole thing, it kind of made them look a bit inept, you know what I mean? When they were out there. And then, of course, it is a boxing team, but everybody has their own personal preparation to do as well. And the personal preparations for people on the way out, but Michael O'Reilly's, the failed drug test. Some people were saying Paddy Barnes was struggling with the weight. Some guys weren't actually in and training on time or whatever. These little small things, you don't know what's going on for people as individuals in the lead up to this. And I suppose what Billy would do normally would be to kind of get everybody together and try and check in with everybody and see how they are. And so it's kind of, it's a pity that it went that way.
It's a combination of things, really, isn't it?
It is, I think so, and I think they were done for going before they even went over there. No matter how they performed, you look at the fights themselves. Michael obviously won the fight. Katie I thought Katie should have got the decision. Joe Ward was very harshly done by, I thought, in terms of the public warnings and the points deducted. And it probably all goes back to like Michael Gallagher, speaking out, and it's I don't know, it's a symptom. I guess it's a symptom of society, how we treat whistleblowers. But he was speaking out, and it hurt the boxers. And by us being here talking today, who knows who's going to hear it? And what effect? It's not Michael Gallagher, who the referee.
Michael Gallagher was one of the Magnificent Seven.
Oh yes, that's right. But like, it doesn't. Doesn't bode well for anybody who speaks out, it seems, across society. And as I said, by even us speaking here today, that might have a knock-on effect. But hopefully, I don't know where these are they're a law unto themselves, and where what repercussions it has by speaking out, or what can be done about it. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know. Are you doing service by? Are you not playing the game? Should we just be towing the line and playing the game? And I don't know. I don't know.
So
I trying to upset it
since
and combat it. Are we hurting the boxers themselves?
I don't know. I mean, you guys must have thought about going pro earlier. I suppose you at least had an Olympic Games, but Eric, why didn't you just go pro after the 2004 Olympics? Was there a decision to be made at that time, do you think, for you in retrospect?
I genuinely thought I could go to the Olympic Games. And that's what I was chasing. But there was a lot of scaremongering going on as well in the amateur setup about professional boxing. Don't go there, there's sharks, they'll eat you up and all that type of stuff, So you'd kind of...
And then you look around and say, well, what am I getting here, when you get to those decisions in the continent, and then even the decisions in the national stadium, sometimes you're thinking, well, it's not much better here in terms of the
quality.
Yeah, and the fairness.
Yeah. Well, you said you were talking to a referee at the weekend who...
Yeah, I won't mention any names, but I was at a boxing show at the weekend, and I knew I was coming in here, and I just said, have you ever been approached, this would be a pretty well-known judge? And he said, yeah, it happens all the time. He says, when you go to those competitions, they'll offer you a holiday for you and your wife, or, a little envelope, but he said he's never took them, and...
But it's there, and it's like the constant, no, I'm all right, no, leave me alone. It's like, stop, and you have to assume that not everybody is turning down the holiday.
I know, yeah. So it's just, I don't know, it's me. See, in Ireland we're so not honest, but if a boxer does well, or any sports person does well, it's a great achievement for them, and they honour their country. But the prestige for other countries, the likes of the Eastern European countries, the prestige of it, the elevation to have an Olympian, it holds a lot more weight. These guys can be a lot of them are like police officers, like the Russian boxers, or Eastern Europe, they'd be like police officers or in the army, and to say this is our representative, he's a army captain, and he's an Olympic bronze medalist or gold medalist or silver medalist, and they kind of show these people off as shining examples for everybody, and it's kind of a national kind of pride thing, whereas with us here in Ireland, we do take national pride, of course we do, but it's very much done in the right way, and it's not, and so I don't know,
we're not chasing medals for the sake of national glory.
And what that does, it opens the door for these bribes and corruption that these people are desperate to get their boxers in these positions.
Yeah, and I think in terms of as well creating an influx of boxing and in their countries as well to keep the sport alive. Look, this is this is what you can achieve when you reach the pinnacle of your sport. You know what I mean? To keep boxing, keep the conveyor belt of boxing coming through, and the talent of boxers coming through. But it reminds me of the film The Godfather. Everybody has a price. You know what I mean? It's like when you hear things like that, it's really stark. It's sobering, really.
Well, so and the other thing is that, and this is covered a little bit next week, but not too much because you have to be careful enough about what you say. But the International Amateur Boxing Association basically took a massive loan from China and are largely in hock to the Chinese for the next 20 years for that massive loan. But in the meantime as well, Dr. Wu, who was the president, who used to come in on a gold chair, apparently he'd be ferried into the meetings with a bunch of human beings holding him up on his gold chair for the ceremonies. He's been replaced by a guy who's on the FBI's most wanted list as an international drug trafficker. Oh, no. And that's now the person who's in charge of all of amateur boxing in the world.
Serious danger of boxing not being at the next Olympics, and you can't argue against it. It'll be horrendous. It'll be an awful shame for the boxers across the world who do things in the right way. But when you see this going on in governance at the head of the sport, how can you argue against it? It's insane,
Yeah.
When you think it's the organisation that is entrusted to lead this sport, develop this sport, and nurture it and make it a great sport, but they've only themselves to blame. I think when Dr. Wu, when we, because like, you know, this is going back, we heard about Daganelli and these other guys, but when Dr. Wu was appointed, you know, the general consensus was this guy is going to clean up this sport. He's done more damage.
And that was his ticket to getting elected for it as well. Eric, before we go, when's your next fight? What's your plans? How are you getting on?
I have a consultation in Santry soon, with my hand. It looks likely that I might need surgery, reconstructive ligament here on my index finger. But I can't fully say that's a definite. I'm still waiting on the consultation, but it does look likely, which would mean my June fight will have to be put back, and then September will be the next one. Yeah, so back out in September, please God.
All right, well, I was going to say fingers crossed, but that's a bad pun. I hope the consultation goes well, and if you do need surgery, best of luck with that, and we'll talk to you plenty in between now and September. Thanks a million for joining us this morning.
Thanks, guys.
It's Eric Donovan there with some good stuff around the importance is all right, because he obviously ends up as one of the scapegoats in the whole Olympic Games. Like, he couldn't handle the pressure, and he probably couldn't handle some of the pressure, but that doesn't diminish his role in making Irish amateur boxing, athletic boxing, the world leader that it was.
Well, you get the opinion of the boxers who work with him, who know how good he is. Like, and everyone, I don't think that you'll find one boxer who has a bad word for Zoe. Anyone who's worked with him, you speak to Michael Conn and Paddy Barnes, Ken Deegan, myself and Eric, like any of the high-profile boxers who work with him, they improve by being around him and by being trained by him. So he's definitely an asset, but managing the asset and how the role he plays and the responsibility he has to take on. And when you look back, him and Billy were the perfect combination, because Billy being, I guess being more in tune with the Irish psyche, knowing boxers and knowing when, like, Billy's very cute and has been around the block himself, was a fighter himself, and knows when someone's taking a break or cutting corners off outside of the gym, what they do, and when they're away from the team, he can see it. He's very perceptive. So. They were the perfect mix, Billy and Zoe. But like, that role can be filled again. I'm sure Bernard Dunn is doing. Like, I went to see Bernard early when he took over as a high performance director, and I was very impressed with what he was saying. Very similar to the lines of what Gary Keegan had started, but had his own spin on things. And I was very I thought I wasn't concerned when Bernard Dunn took up. I just wasn't sure how he would handle it, because I'd never seen him in that kind of a role before, working with a team. But after leaving there, I thought it's in the right hands now. I think Bernard's going to do a great job. And
well, hopefully he's given the freedom to do it, and the backing. Like, the problem is really the administration of the sport. And that's a whole another hour's worth of documentaries.
Can of worms. Yeah.
Some quick comments just to roll through these. Jared Dorr says, great listening, but sad in so many ways. Systemic cheating and how it ruins sport. Fair play to the lads for staying positive through it. Yeah, I mean, I think that's the big thing, is that, like, you guys all did actually just maintain this, okay, we're going to keep going. And, like, Eric had a brilliant career. Everybody who made the Olympics had a brilliant career, and it was a really worthwhile thing for them. Like, at least you ended up getting into the professional ranks, where it is full of sharks, and there are as many corrupt stories. And
I realised that young, and I remember that, like, as Eric said, that all the old stuff, like, people would be saying, you never turn pro, they'll use you up. And I remember, like, one time I was injured for a while, I had a hand injury, and when I was 18, I was winning everything, and then I was the blue-eyed boy. Everyone, all the old officials and everybody would be clapping on your back, and how you doing? And I was injured for about 4 or 5 months, and I wasn't boxing, and like, somebody else was winning, and then, like, they were just walking past me. They weren't even saying hello to me anymore, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And all the bad, and I said, they're just as bad here, in the amateur game, they're just as bad. And I'm just,
people are people.
Yeah, and do your own thing, and there are good and bad in all walks of life.
It's true. Michael Dowling says, geez lads, there's a documentary in this. Hey, you're right, there is. Next Monday night on Air Sport at 9:30 is part 2 of that. Now, let's move on.
Ger, that's on Freeview. Last week was on Freeview. Monday, so maybe next week it'll be on. Will it be on Freeview? You don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll check that out.
Yeah.
We'll tell everybody. We can tweet that from at Off the Ball on Twitter a little bit later on. But so good response to it so far, and plenty more good stuff in part 2 as well. Now, yesterday we were talking about whether or not Fergie's Man United were really as exciting as we remember them, and what Pep Guardiola's Man City are missing to push on to the next level. Have a look at the clip from yesterday's show. It's Paul Rouse chatting about Fergie's United.
There's a bit of a nostalgia thing here, though. There's this image that all Ferguson's teams for 20 whatever number of years were all fluid, all attacking, never sat back, never played defensive. And United, when they went away in Europe, for example, often played under Ferguson, as he in the 2000s in particular.
Yeah.
Kind of sat in, grind out results, 5-man midfield, did all of that. And United had some very poor players under Alex Ferguson, but he always had enough players to go for it, and he always seemed to want to go for it and to play with attacking football, and he didn't ever seem afraid to take a chance with players.
I think as well he had credit in the bank from the team of the late 90s. There was a brilliant piece. Daniel Harris was tweeting links from his book where he was saying in advance of the FA Cup replay against Arsenal, the one where Ryan Giggs scores the goal, before that game he gave 2 pieces of advice to Beckham and to Giggs. The Beckham advice was stop trying stuff. You're a brilliant striker of the ball. Pass it and kick it. Stop trying anything else. And with Giggs, it was stop just passing it. Try stuff. You are one of the most elaborately gifted footballers in the history of the world. Every time you get it, you try and do stuff. And lo and behold, Beckham whips in an amazing cross, and Giggs goes off and scores that slalom run. But at least there was that sense that team, anything could happen, and they were always trying to do stuff. This team, it's like, what the hell? Yeah, what is their identity? Daniel Harris, good morning to you.
Morning, hiya.
How's it going?
Yeah, well, thanks. How you well?
Yeah, good. So you saw our stuff on Twitter yesterday. Is there a bit of nostalgia, though, that recasts Alex Ferguson's Manchester United team as always perpetually swashbuckling, or were there periods where actually the team played as football in any way as sterile as the stuff that we saw against West Brom last weekend, for example?
There'll always be nostalgia with something that was. So he is not recast as this cavalier who always did things in a particular way and always stayed true to the traditions and all the guff that we hear around these kind of things. But I think that sometimes it's played down slightly. So if you look at his 98-99 team, who won everything, went for it in every game. Didn't always work, but they did go for it in every game. And I think when you're assessing how good teams are and the quality of the football that they play, I think one of the main categories is against whom did they play it. So if you look at this Manchester City team, for example, if you look at Arsenal 2004, and you say, well, which great teams did they destroy playing that kind of football? The answer will be this will be quite short. Whereas if you look at Fergie's team in 98-99, they scored 8 against Nottingham Forest, they scored 6 against Leicester, they scored 6 against Bromby, but you wouldn't even think about those games, because what you do is you look at what they did in the Champions League against Barcelona, against Bayern Munich, against Inter, against Juventus. In those games, they went and they played brilliant football, and I think that is the main reason that we would remember that team, is the ability to do it at clutch, to have the bravery and the confidence in your ability to do it at clutch. Whereas the 2008 team, for example, when they played Barcelona in the semi-final of the Champions League, they basically went out to win that tie 1-0, and they did. And that's a skill, but it shows you that Fergie wasn't averse to doing what he thought was necessary to get a result.
So if you were to compare and contrast those two teams, the 99 and the 2008 team, it seems to me from what you've just said that you definitely have more love for the 99 team.
Personally, I guess it's partly to do with how old you were. I was 20 in 1999. 98-99 was the first year I was in charge of my own football going. And so it'll never just be to do with the way that they played, but to do with where you were in your life at a particular time, which I'm sure is fascinating to everyone who's listening to this.
Not that they were a better team, that you were a better man.
Yeah, exactly. Some autobiographical details. Yeah. But I think the 08 team were amazingly competent at the back, and there's something to be said for that as well, that they were drilled and they knew what they were doing. That Van der Sar, Brown, Evra, Vidic, Ferdinand, there won't be that many better defences that I think that we've ever seen. And they went through the knockout stages of Europe playing decent teams, and they conceded I think 1 goal to Lyon in the last 16, and then 1 goal to Chelsea in the final, and then clean sheets clean sheets everywhere else. And that included 180 minutes against Barcelona, who were something of a mess, but also had Messi. So I think that there are different ways to do it, but when you're evaluating how teams play and how cavalier they were, the main thing I would always be looking at is who did you beat playing that way? And so if you look at Wenger's Arsenal teams, for example, they were amazing aesthetic destroyers of Charlton, but who did they do it in Europe? Not often, not really, and definitely not in the knockout stages.
Yeah, that is the glaring miss, really, from Wenger's Arsenal career. If he'd won that one Champions League final, then you get the feeling that the credit in the bank that he would have would be so much greater. I guess this is kind of the conversation that we were having about Mourinho and how he doesn't, with the Manchester United fans, have any credit in the bank when it comes to playing brilliant football. There is last season's trophy, which was important, and the team has progressed in terms of like the nailed-on qualification for the Champions League, but there's no real sense of them being part of that grand tradition of Manchester United. And it feels almost as if Ferguson set that down with the template in '99 and then evolved it to a point where they were less exciting, more functionally brilliant, perhaps, and more consistently brilliant over the final few seasons. And so that's why Ferguson is allowed to evolve his style. Mourinho never had the cavalier thing or got the fans on side with that.
I think what happened with Fergie actually was quite interesting, was he sort of became a victim of his own history. So he won playing that brilliant football in 98-99, then the following year, I mean, I think they were still the best team in Europe, and they ended up drawing Real Madrid in the quarterfinals, and Madrid were a mess. Before United went to Madrid, the papers in Madrid were all about fear about what United were going to do to them. And Fergie, who'd gone to the 1960 European Cup final at Hampden Park, sent United out in the Bernabeu to play Di Stefano and Puskás. And so United played quite defensively, ended up drawing 0-0, which looked like a good result at the time, because you assume that if you draw your away leg 0-0, if you're playing in a knockout in Europe, you're going to have to win at home, generally. But then United played brilliantly at Old Trafford in the first half, couldn't score, and then just before half-time, Roy Keane scored an own goal. And instead of being patient and waiting to score the 2 goals that the balance of play looked like they were about to come, they went mad, and they ended up conceding 2 more on the break. And rather than evaluate that game for what it was his team just doing a little bit too much, Fergie changed quite a lot after that and then looked to play tactics and looked to be canny. And it took him quite a long time to get to a point where his team were good enough at doing that. I guess it probably took Carlos Queiroz to organise the defence for him, because he didn't really do that, and Cristiano Ronaldo to hit his stride before he had a team that was able to play in what we might consider to be a more European way. I think the thing with Mourinho is that you know what you're going to get with him, and I think that sometimes people underappreciate how good his Chelsea side were. That when you kind of have these conversations about who the best English clubs were, for me it's United 2008, United 98-99, and then Chelsea, and then Daylight. And they played some brilliant football when they had Robin playing before he contrived to fall out with him, because why wouldn't you fall out with your most talented player? But I think what's happened with United now is people are quite satisfied with what Mourinho's done to get United from where they were to where they are. And I dare say not many, if any, managers could have done that, taken United from 6th to 2nd, still using not just rubbish that Van Gaal bought and rubbish that Moyes bought, but rubbish that Fergie bought. I mean, look at the fullbacks, Valencia and Young, the 2 wingers who aren't good enough to play for United, who Fergie bought a long time ago. But if you look at the attacking players that he has now, I feel like there are a lot of managers in world football that could be getting more out of them than Mourinho is. Yeah. And I don't get any sense that Mourinho is going to take them the rest of the way. There's not any sense of progress. And what he seems to want to do is just churn players, sell the ones he doesn't like, buy some new ones. There's no sense of a plan of a team evolving to become more of an agglomerate of individuals. So what you see is you see them against City and you see them against Chelsea, say, and there are some good players there. So every now and again they combine to do something good. But there's no sense of it coming. You don't anticipate their goals, what you do with a really good team, where you can see where they're about to score because they're imposing themselves, they're imposing their will on the opposition. With Mourinho's teams, that doesn't happen. It's just Pogba and Sanchez might link up because Pogba and Sanchez are class players, but that's it.
Yeah, it's a fluke. So just to go back, the 3 top Premier League winning teams, was that how you define them? Were Man United 99, Man United 08 and Chelsea?
So the way I look at it is I try to keep it objective and non-partisan, and I guess I am partisan in this and I support one of the teams. But instead of looking at how you play made me feel, which is important as a supporter and just as a lover of football. I guess I'd look at 3 criteria. What did you win? Who did you beat? And what did you do in the biggest games? And what did you win that is a purely objective standard. Who did you beat is difficult, because if you happen to be in an era where the teams aren't that good, then hard luck. Like if you look at United 93-94, they beat Aston Villa into second place and they beat Blackburn into second place. They were a really good team, but unfortunately, when you look back, they didn't beat anyone, and that is to their detriment. And similarly, even though they were hampered by the foreigners' rule in Europe, they failed in Europe as well. So it's hard to include that team in the conversation, even if you think, well, actually, if they played all these teams in your mind, they'd have a good chance of beating them. So if I look at Chelsea, are the only other team who retained the Premier League. They got a lot of points. They did it in dominating style. They won from the front, and they did well in Europe as well. Although they didn't win the Champions League in those seasons, that same group of players got to the final in 2008 and were an unfortunate slip away from winning it. And then even many years later in 2012, when they did win it, that was still quite a lot of the nucleus of that team.
So which Chelsea team are you picking?
The 05-06 team.
The 05-06.
I guess they were basically together from 05 till 09 really. They were even 2010. That was basically a team that the nucleus of which didn't change much. Terry, Lampard, Pogba.
Yeah, I noticed you've studiously avoided mentioning Pep Guardiola's Manchester City. Daylight between them and the 3 that you mentioned.
For now. I mean, I look at that team and you can see there's a lot of scope for them to get better. I'm not disrespecting what they've done this season, which is phenomenal. They've played some unbelievable football. They've strolled the league in an unbelievable manner. But when I look at that criteria again, what did you win? 1 league and one Carabao Cup. Okay, that's good. Who did you beat? No one. I mean, I think we're more or less agreed that this United team are not good, and they're in second place in the league. So that's more or less no one.
If Liverpool win the Champions League, though, perhaps, then all of a sudden we'll recast that?
Sure. Then you look at what did you do in your biggest games, and what was City's biggest games? Because they made the league so easy, the biggest games were Liverpool in the Champions League, and they got walloped 5-1 on aggregate, and they collapsed in the first game. And then the other game was that once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to beat United to the league, and they collapsed in that game as well. And these, to me, are quite big black marks. Andy will tell you, he knows what it's like to compete at an elite level. I'm sure he knows a lot better than me what it's like when the pressure's on. And certain teams are able to get through that. If you look at United, when United played Juventus in the first leg of the Champions League semi in '99, they got absolutely pasted in the first half. But they were able to hang in there, and they got out of there losing. They got out of there at 1-0 because there were players in that team, and people sometimes look at it in terms of, are they hard, are they snide? And then they look at Roy Keane saying, it's not really about that. It's players who are prepared to take the ball under pressure, to continue to be positive under pressure. And that 99 team was full of players able to do that. And that was why they were able to hang in that game and only get out of that first half 1-0 and end up winning the tie. Whereas City, when it got real at Anfield, they didn't have the characters, I would say, the personalities. If you look at that team, who in that City team do you think is hard, is snide, or just even is someone who's able to imprint their personality upon a game and raise the standard of the players around them? They've got some beautiful, amazing players, some of the best players we've ever seen. Silva and De Bruyne in particular stand out for me as wonderful players. But the only one who's got that kind of mongrel about them when I look at them is Aguero. He wasn't playing.
Yeah, moral courage is how John Giles defined it when we were growing up watching football on TV. All right, well, Daniel, you made a pretty good case, but one last question for you then about Mourinho. I kind of feel like the doomsday clock is ticking on Jose at the moment, and that, who knows, like they're saying in the papers today that he's okay to sell Pogba this summer if he wants to and if he decides to, but at some point the Glazers are going to look at that and go, you bought him, you spent all that money, you're responsible for buying him, you're responsible ultimately for pulling the trigger on that deal. And okay, so maybe we haven't lost any money on that, but at some point they want success for the input.
Absolutely. I think that what we'll see with Mourinho is he'll get one more year, but if he's not in a much better position this time next year, then he's going to be in a lot of trouble. And it's not even about the players so much. I think Pogba's a brilliant player. And the other day I watched a video of Pogba at the beginning of the season, like a compilation, one of those things you see on Twitter basically, and I'd forgotten that he was able to move that fast. And that's obviously a problem of Pogba, that it doesn't look to me like he's putting it in, assuming he's fit, but Mourinho should be getting more out of him as well. And He seemed to, when he first arrived at United, he seemed to buy players, Mkhitaryan and Pogba, to try and prevent him from being his worst self. If I buy these artists, then it'll be impossible for me to play the kind of football that I play, and I'll be playing this football that we all talk guff about the kind of football that Manchester United play. But what's actually happened is the players that he loves are Matic, who to me is nowhere near good enough to play in the position that he plays in for United. I mean, if he's so good, why do United get the ball forward so quickly, given that that's his job? Why is the defence so inadequately protected if that's his job? But these are his undroppables, Matic and Lukaku. And I think it's hard to see the football improving, even if, let's say, sells Pogba and he buys 2 excellent midfield players with that money and a right winger, which is possible. Do I trust Mourinho to get it right subsequently? Not particularly, because nothing I've seen shows me that he's got a plan. He waited. He doesn't like Martial. He hasn't liked him from the beginning. But Martial was playing brilliantly. He bought Sanchez and put him on the left wing. The only part of the team, the attacking part of the team that has functioned properly this season has been the left of the attack, whether it's been Martial or Rashford. He buys Sanchez, immediately puts him on the left, and then chucks someone else onto the right, and it hasn't worked. And that shows me that it was an opportunist signing, not a planned signing. Yeah. And it was a signing that hasn't worked. And he's showing no signs of integrating all these players who are really good players into a formula that works. And it works when you're not playing well because everyone knows what they're doing. So there's a pro forma of behaviour that means that you're getting something out of the talents that are there, which is, it's just not the case at the moment.
Daniel, great stuff. Thanks very much for joining us this morning.
See you guys. Bye.
Daniel Harris giving us some thoughts on Man United. Do you enjoy watching Man United at the moment?
Beating City? Yeah. Half time, went out to. Went to Lidl. I came back with the shopping bags. It was 2-2. I was like, what? But there was some great insights there and some great point of views. I wonder how, say we continue on, they're going to see out the season. He'll survive it. But next season, if the results go bad at the start and City are flying, how long will he have if the fans turn on him? I think it's a very fragile relationship at the moment. I'm a United fan, and I give him the benefit of the doubt and give him time, but
fans are leaving early at matches.
He doesn't do himself any favor. I don't know. It seems to be all about him, and I don't like. Even when you look at that, he still lives in a hotel in Manchester. That he hasn't moved there permanently. That he doesn't, the fact that he was flirting with PSG before he signed the new contract, maybe he doesn't see himself there. Maybe he just, it's a working job where he gets paid his money, and it's not something where he sees he's going to actually build a legacy there.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Doesn't feel like it at the moment. All right, one last clip for you here. Sean O'Gallagher last night on Off the Ball chatting to Nathan about why the GAA should not turn to professionalism.
Do you know what? I keep harping back to how I got through, sustaining into county career for 15 years, but at the same time holding it, and there was nothing wrong with that, and it was grand. And then basically the beauty about having gone through that experience was the last time I poked the ball for Cork was the semi-final against Galway, beat us in 2012. I mean, the following morning, I was just in work. Life moves on. I wasn't on the train back home to Cork, saying, geez, what am I going to do tomorrow? How am I going to put bread on the table? Or I just went back to Ulster Bank, just went working, and so there was a great balance struck. To be honest, even if you were to earn 150 grand a year, if that's true, that ain't going to sustain you. That won't get you across the road when you finish into county. So, and I know, look, it's been the hot debate at the minute, the route that the association is going. I rather, if you would have asked me as an 18-year-old, I would have loved to see myself as a professional hurler. After going through the last 20 years and after talking to my 2 brothers' experience in professional sport in Australia, I take what I had.
Really?
Every day of the week, man. Yeah.
That's interesting, isn't it?
Interesting, yeah. It's hard to. I guess you have to take his opinion like it holds a lot of weight because he's been through it, and as he said, his brothers played with professional. You would imagine any player would want to be professional to get paid for what they do, but then what are they left when they finish? You know, in terms of like a lot of boxers finish boxing and they might not have made that much money. What are they left with? You know what I mean?
But even like the high performance lads, there was no career development in parallel.
Like they have to. Like you look. Listen, I don't want to speak out of time, but Kenneth Egan, Olympic silver medalist, he should be an assistant coach right now to Ger and Andy and have be a permanent job, give him back to the youth and all his experience and developing young fighters, because he can do that. It's a natural thing, but he's had to go out and educate himself now. He's a qualified counsellor, and he had to do that all himself. There was no support there.
And ultimately, that's exactly where it needs to go, where the lads are in college, they're training, they're getting the whatever funding they're getting, so that there's like a life where we're making you better people as you go along here.
That's the idea.
That's the only way to stop people turning pro.
Yeah, that would be the idea. That you can see that there's a life after, and Sean Og was saying that he just went straight back into work. So even when he retires now, he has a job for life. If he wants it. So there's an argument for that as well.
Last tweet of the morning, Issel Cody says, absolutely brilliant stories about boxing from Andy and Eric. Also eye-opening as regards amateur boxing, which in my opinion is the breeding ground for proper pros, not the raft of guys who go pro due to failing at that level. So thanks for the comment, Issel. We had loads more boxing comments that we didn't get to, but we do read them all, so keep sending them in, and we'll see you bright-eyed and bushy-tailed tomorrow. Andy, great stuff. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Ger. Thanks for having me.
No worries. We'll see you again real soon.
OTB AM. In association with Air. Get Air Sport free with Air Broadband.